Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this version of the Alpine Supply Chain Solutions monthly webinar. This month's topic is how to replace WCS, WES without missing any shipments. As we go through this, please utilize the chat icon to submit any questions, and at the tail end of the presentation, I will field those questions to the panelists. Very quick reading. The information discussed in this session represents the views of the individuals and does not constitute legal advice or the views of Alpine. You should consult with your organization's leadership and legal counsel as needed for your specific situations. Welcome again. My name is Greg Utter. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm one of the senior managing directors at Alpine, and it's good to have everybody here and on board. Next, I'll let the folks who are running this presentation today introduce themselves from left to right.
Hi, my name is Michael Harris, and I'm the Director of Fulfillment for School Specialty in Mansfield, Ohio.
Hey, good afternoon. Michael Woolwin, Managing Principal from Alpine Supply Chain Solutions. 30 plus years in warehousing and distribution. Installed my first warehouse management system in 1994 with the Symbol Gladiator, which was the first hands-free version. I've probably done about 80 WMS projects, and it wasn't until 2018 that I actually started working with WCSs and WMSs, and it's due to my co-host today, Scott Lee. Scott?
Well, thank you, Michael. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining today and carving out part of your afternoon to spend with us. I am the President and CEO of Systems in Motion. We are a systems integrator. We have over 100 people located in 17 different states. We're headquartered, though, in Elgin, Illinois. Our primary focus is mainly e-commerce, fulfillment, distribution, third-party logistics solutions, but we also play in the manufacturing and packaging space. I've been in the business. This is my 35th year in material handling. Thank you very much, and thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for the introductions, everyone. So today's agenda, how to replace WCS, WES without missing any shipments. We're going to run through the following topics: school specialty overview, the problem we were attempting to solve, the approach we took, the strategic implementation, WMS selection and implementation, WCS installation, and additional actions to follow up. I'll let you go next, Michael.
Yep. So thank you, Greg. So when you think of school specialty, for you that don't know us, you're obviously thinking education first. But however, as you can see on the slide, we offer a variety of different solutions across many markets. Anything from early childhood, community healthcare. Obviously, our bread and butter is K-12 education, but we do dabble in getting stronger in the other markets as well. So a little bit more about school specialty. Obviously, this, like I said before, schools are the depth and breadth of kind of what we do and really our bread and butter. But when you look at school specialty, we offer over 80,000 different products. We do anything from school supplies to furniture, installations could be anything from carpets, gym pad or wall pads, arts and crafts. So a variety of different products and obviously thousands of vendors we partner with. Our headquarters is out of Greenville, Wisconsin. Outside of Greenville, Wisconsin, we do have 7 other facilities throughout the country. Mansfield, Ohio, which is where I'm from, is the second fulfillment center in the country. We also have a fairly new showroom in Dallas, Texas, that we bring some customers down to in sales to train on our latest and greatest products. We came about in 1959. We've evolved several different times through many different acquisitions and purchases. We have just a little over 1,000 employees. Our main piece is distribution, but we certainly, as you can see on here, projects by design is a big portion of ours. So we have sales reps and educational experts that will go out and meet with our clients and schools and talk about how do we get the most out of a student, not just how they're presented in the classroom, but the supplement of it as well. So we also work with our educators on professional development, And then, like I said as well, we do a little bit of the manufacturing piece for some of our proprietary brands, which we'll talk about on the next slide. So this gives a little bit more about our depth and breadth of our product. Like I said, we offer over 80,000 different products. Our warehouses will hold between 12 and 26,000 different SKUs. So a lot of what comes out to our customers comes directly from our warehouses. So again, like I said before, furniture and equipment, sensory and special needs, educational supplies, safety, security, technology, and STEM. We do have exclusive and preferred partnerships with our top tier manufacturers. We do offer obviously contracts for purchasing options for all public and private schools. So on the right side, you'll kind of see some of our proprietary brands. Caliphone, Childcraft, which is our early educational furniture. Snoozalin is more of our pieces for like our autism crowd and whatnot, where we need to provide those different types of options. Saks is our art brand. Kits for Kids is something that we bundle for any type of customer, primarily summer schools and such, that we build kits specifically for that and distribute either to the school or directly to the consumer.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
So Michael and I have been working together for quite a few years now. Believe it or not, Ryan, the CEO of School Specialty, reached out to us and said, we know that we have a facility and technology debt. The question is, what is the right answer? And is there any next level automation that is justifiable? So what's it going to cost to actually, make up these facility and technology debts? And before we actually go and invest in these buildings, are we in the right place, right? And we know that we need a new WMS, and it's probably going to be the longest pole in the tent, but because we are private equity backed, we have to have everything I's dotted, T's crossed, and an ROI. So this was the initial call that I had with Ryan, their CEO. So if you go to the next slide for us, Greg. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to establish a baseline, a strategic master plan, space, equipment, labor, control. Where are we at today with SKU growth and velocity growth? What is the baseline? And there was an option that said, hey, what if we went to, one single distribution center? Or what if we got out of distribution, we went to a 3PL? So we worked with both Radial and CJ Logistics to do a benchmark on what would the cost be to actually outsource this. If you go to the next slide for me. So I talked about establishing a baseline. So we looked at sales over a horizon. We looked at labor over a horizon and really understood that if we were going to compare something today versus tomorrow, what would our labor be? What's our current lines per hour on the inbound, outbound, and those types of things. So now that we have the baseline, we can evaluate alternatives. So if you go to the next slide for me, Greg, what we found is that it was going to be about $5.7 million investment, and it was going to have about a 25-month return. So now we understand, okay, great. What's the cost to make the infrastructure and the WMS? If you go to the next slide for me, Greg, let's validate before we go make these investments in these buildings where we are, like this distribution network analysis. So we looked at all the inbound shipments, globally sourced, domestically sourced. And as you can imagine, the outbound shipments, right, where are the people? So you can see here by the 3-digit zip code where all the students and the schools were and have it populated. So based on the inbound transportation cost, based on the outbound shipment and service level. If you go to the next slide, if we were to do a single DC, it'd just be right outside of Indianapolis there. On the flip side, if we looked at 2 distribution centers, you go to the next slide, we got Overland Park, Kansas, and then we also have either Clinton, New Jersey, or Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so if you go to the next slide, based on the fact that we're in Greenville, Wisconsin, and Mansfield, Ohio, there was only about a $1.25 million a year penalty for not being in the optimal location. And as we all know, you can't build a brand new facility and put the equipment in and everything for 1.25 million a year. So they decided to stay in the existing buildings and actually go ahead and do the project and make the investments in those buildings. So we said, great, now we know exactly what we need. We know where we're going to be. Where are we going? So the longest pole in the tent was the WMS. So we went out and facilitated a WMS selection and implementation. So the current state is, in order to start building our roadmap for the future, we need a solid understanding of the current state of our supply chain operations. So what does it look like today? We've got Pick-to-Light in Greenville and Mansfield. We've got Box Tracker WCS in Greenville and Mansfield. We got carousels in Nashua. We got RF units across all sites. Radio Beacon WMS running in Nashua. Sterling WMS running in 3 sites. And we had a TMS across all 4. And what we had decided is an event, right, based on what we're doing and where we're going, we need to look at, no, that's fine, Greg, what the requirements are, right? So one of the big ones was labor management, right? So currently today, there was no labor management in place. And given 8 to 10 weeks of the year, their volume really spikes for back to school. We need to make sure that we're getting a day's worth of value from each employee. The other big one was voice picking and how we're going to integrate to the current Matthews Pick-to-Light and all the conveyors. And then they really wanted to make sure, because their seasonality is so important and they have so many SKUs and they got to minimize the travel, what the slotting initiative would look like. In addition to that, they did want to do some dock scheduling because they have overflow in Mansfield, Ohio, right? Because of their peak season, they get more inventory February and March and April. And then the same in Greenville, Wisconsin, they've got an overflow facility. Obviously, an integrated parcel management solution was going to be big, to be able to do rate shopping and those types of things. And then being able to, have this integrated back to their ERP system. So we developed all the requirements. And then, Greg, if you go to the next slide, we got alignment across all the facilities, right? We know what the need was. We had the business case. We developed an RFP. And then when we actually developed the RFP, as we were allowing the vendors to actually respond to it, we developed a scorecard to score them. We also used the RFP and the 10 to 15 unique functionalities that are needed as our scripted demo. So we executed the scripted demo, we scored the scripted demo, and we came down to the 2 top vendors. The first one was Blue Yonder, which was being resold by Open Sky Group, and then Kerber. And I think you guys can all appreciate that school supplies, very, very low margin. And so price was a very, very big impact on this, as well as security, longevity, stability. And so at the end of the day, we did some reference calls, did some reference visits, and either one of these 2 solutions would run their business. If you go to the next slide. But I think the fact that we were looking at Blue Yonder, they really shined with regards to the cartonization, because we wanted to pick directly into the outbound box with Magic Logic. They brought the Optricity's OptiSlot, and then they had the fully integrated ProShip. And so with those 3, in addition to the Blue Yonder WMS, that is the way that school specialty team chose. So, okay, great. We've got the WMS, we're ready to go, but guess what? We got this WCS, and man, oh man, it needs attention. So we actually brought in Systems in Motion, one of our partners that we've worked with on numerous projects, and they always have a really good result with their WCS. So, Scott, I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks, everybody. So Michael Harris spent some time talking about, who his company is and what they do and where they are. And then Michael Wolin told you at 100,000 feet about the background, the location, the structure, the warehousing, who, why, when, where, and what. And then we drove down to the warehouse management system selection. And as Michael mentioned, the next peg down, as we get a little bit closer to the plant floor, is our WCS. So for folks who don't know, and I know we have a couple new folks on the call here, we've got a warehouse management system, which you consider your business system, doing a lot of backstage activities, We've got a lot of receiving, shipping, other activities that are happening. And then you've got the stuff on the floor. So what's on the floor? Many of you may have conveyor systems, which are run by PLCs, robots, pick to lights, pick to voice, print and applies, all those activities, we'll call it at the machine level. So we've got machine level activities and we have a warehouse management system. And those two things need to talk to each other. Now, back in the day, they just needed a very simple tool to talk to one another. We used to call it our warehouse control system. Now you hear more technology more and more called the warehouse execution system. And the reason for that is it's executing a lot more functions than we would have ever dreamed of. And e-commerce drove a lot of that development. We wanted to be able to see the folks on the floor wanted to be able to see what was happening more upstream, and the upstream activities, including the client, the customer, wanted to see what was happening and where their products were actually throughout the warehouse and their entire supply chain journey. So the warehouse control system / warehouse execution system turned from a must-have simple black box activity to a very value-added driven. And what we're finding out throughout the marketplace is these warehouse control systems are archaic, they're outdated, and they cause a lot of problems during all these WMS and equipment upgrades. So that's why we really wanted to bring and expose this and bring it up to the top of the water level and say, we realize people are having trouble with this. We aren't going to dive deep down into the specifics of warehouse control system and how it works and functionality. We just want to raise the level of awareness to say that in a greenfield environment, which is brand new, we understand this is easy to implement. But what we're going to talk about here and focus on is that you can just as easily do this in what we call a brownfield, which is an existing environment with an ongoing operation that you need to integrate all this new software without impacting, we'll call the shop floor activities. All right, so what we're going to talk about real quickly here, we're going to cover the problems that School Specialty was having, the selection criteria that we used, why they chose Systems in Motion and specifically the COS solution as the WCS, WES, a high-level overview of the product, COS, and then the actual scope of this specific project. Once again, at a high level, the implementation, which is very important in the brownfield facilities, ongoing operation, how we implemented this thing, and then last but not least, the results. And that's some takeaways back from Michael Harris. All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick this off with the problems that School Specialties is trying to solve. One of the biggest ones, as I mentioned earlier in the opening statements, was WCSs were an afterthought. They were a black box. You didn't know how these things worked. You didn't even know where they were located. We just knew when they weren't working, you knew they weren't working. Everything on the floor stopped. Nothing could talk to the what we'll call the mainframe or the warehouse management system. They would crash and everybody would scramble. So one of the current issues they were having was crashing and keeping it uptime. Secondly, zero visibility to any functionality or issue resolution. When it did go down, you didn't know where to start, who to call. And third there, more importantly, getting somebody on the phone who actually had this knowledge. There wasn't directions or skill books or a YouTube video on how to fix this stuff. You had to find the right person who knew about this little black box. And that's tough in an emergency situation. So their current WMS system was challenging. All right. At the same time, they were upgrading their WMS system. So not only do you have to replace your WES, WCS, but they're upgrading WMS at the same time. So you got to make sure you're designing that interface and then the implementation together. That was good. That could have been a major issue. So it went on to problem solving. All right. School Specialty made a decision to replace the warehouse control system, which also then means we have to talk down. It's not just talking to WMS. It has to come in and remap all of the activities that are happening on the platform floor. And lastly, that's why we also want to take over the entire control system of their existing conveyor system. And it's in more than one facility. So those are the major problems that we were challenged with when we came into this. Next. All right, so the selection criteria. Given those problems, what was School Specialty and Alpine looking at and a supplier that come in and do this? Well, number one, proven success, not just in new facilities, but brownfield integrations. And that meant there could be zero impact to the ongoing operations. This had to happen seamlessly. All right. Also had to be able to communicate the new COS system, the WCS, with both older and newer WMS platforms. I'll explain that in a second, why we had to achieve that. Also, experienced with interfacing with Matthews Pictolite. We didn't want to have that as a major hurdle. They had old Pictolite, old infrastructure inside this black box. And while the systems weren't really being used in totality, part of the scope of work was to add and upgrade the Matthews Pictolite as part of the total scope to work. Next. All right, front stage operations, so critical. Not only did it need to not go down and impact the operation, no matter what was happening on the back interfacing with their old systems, with their new system, as an operator using this system and leveraging it, nothing could change on the front end. They did not need to know what was going on the back end, so we had to make sure we weren't changing the scope of work or processes at all during the interface. All right. Not only that, the ability to design two systems to interface with their existing WMS software and the new software and make sure those are fully tested and brought online at the same time and could be switched back and forth interchangeably. And I wouldn't say last but not least, very, very important, is reverse engineer the interface to make sure you impact the resources as little as possible over at school specialties. Anytime a Systems in Motion implements the COS system, we have to spend time with the IT folks. They've got a lot of other things on their plate, and they don't have a lot of knowledge on interfacing with this black box they didn't even know existed that was written by somebody years ago. So what we do to make it easy possible is we try to re-engineer that interface to the most current state and technology to rewrite that code backwards so that folks at the IT level don't have to do as much as possible. All right, so why Systems in Motion at COS? Well, first of all, been in the business 35 years. Our controls company brought their very first WCS to the table in DOS many, many years ago. We are now in .NET, so 30 years of development. Extremely experienced in doing upgrades and retrofits in existing on-home brown fields. All right, the COS system, very modular in a proven design. We were able to bring the client and school specialties into many other facilities and show them working and tell them the story and the journey, how we got from an old system to a new system. There was countless interfaces with everything from AS400s to Manhattan, Blue Yonder, countless different interfaces they are experienced with. So nothing was going to be new. And then several years and years of integration projects already with Matthews Pictolite. So that module within COS was already written. So it required very, very little manipulation. Next. All right. Another reason sim in COS. Remember, I told you that the WCS, as it converts to a WES, was a black box. You didn't know what you were doing. There was no value added other than the machine could talk to WMS. Now the world has changed. Operators on the floor can get value, and then folks in the IT group can get value about the speed of things happening. So what COS brings to the table and why they selected it, we give you countless monitoring screens, everything from print and apply rates, sort rates, divert rates, activities, live action. Are we connected? How fast is the data speed? There's countless data screens. Additionally, when you put in a WCS, you are talking to the controls on the plant floor. It could be just a simple conveyor system. It could be a complicated conveyor system, or it can have robotics, goods to persons, you name it. I have never seen a warehouse control system or a warehouse execution system get implemented where you are not impacting some form of the controls, PLCs, control cabinets, the existing network system. Systems in Motion has an in-house control center and panel build center. So we have the capabilities in-house, and those folks work together seamlessly to analyze the existing environment. So when we bring a solution to the table for the COS and WCS, we are combining that with any activities that need to happen or upgrades in the control package. So that's another reason that Systems in Motion is selected. And then Systems in Motion has a fully active and integrated nationwide aftermarket service, or we call AMS, aftermarket service group. And this is really important because remember, I told you one of the problems is When this little black box went down, nobody knew who to call. It was very frustrating. Systems in Motion integrates the software WES WCS aftermarket service package along with its control package and mechanical aftermarket. So it just seamlessly integrates into that. On a 24-hour hotline, you can call and get service. Plus, there's a whole bunch of technical mobile skills. You can just access the service right through any technology, websites, phone calls, you name it. That was really important why they picked SIM. Next. All right, little about COS. So now we're moving to the product itself. You can see on the screen this giant octopus. If you just start at the top, we have our warehouse management system. Some products force you to integrate or interface with the WMS in some way, shape, or form. We've developed the COS product to interface any way possible. Everywhere from old stuff like WinSockets, API points to FFP. There's a number of ways that we can integrate depending on the technology available, how we're reverse engineering. And oftentimes we have to do it one way to get it live and knowing we're going to integrate and change the interface in the future when a different WMS technology or network is available. But we're experienced across all of them. Now, notice everything comes into a general hub, which is all the COS common processes. And we feather the way out all the way to, on the left-hand side, from data, webs, scanners, all the devices on the floor, the device masters, all the routing instructions, your interface, all your shipping APIs, your picking solutions, sorting solutions, robotics, the goods to person's interface, and then in the upper right-hand side, the cubing solution. So I don't want to get into this too much. We've got a 64 slides show that we can forward anybody, page slideshow, that goes into the depth of each one of these areas, all the different functionality. We just want to show you that this is very modularized in experience and has been in almost every type of environment. If we go to the next slide, that's a great example of the core we start with, the COS Lite product. It can be as simple as all you're doing is a print apply machine. You've got a warehouse management system, you want to put some labels on some boxes, you go with COS Lite, get your simple warehouse control system. It's a simple module. If you get a little more experience, like you see maybe in the right hand or left hand over there, you add the base, and then we've got COS Connections. COS Connections plugs in, we configure it, and that decides the interface both up and down to all the components. Now, depending on what devices you have out in the field, whether it's sortation or like we show in the left picture, an OPEX Perfect Pick, it could be carousels, whatever it is, we have our COS Motion module. We'll turn on and off different sections of that module, depending on what equipment you have out in the field. COS View, whether you want it on your mobile app, whether you want it on a web server, or if you want the command center, which is a giant set of TVs that's in a central area of wherever you want, control center, showing everything from your data screens to cameras of stuff that's going on there. Those are all part of our COS View visibility module. And then we've got our cloud-based monitoring. As I said, you can go completely mobile. You can monitor things. You can request services. You can request different screens through your cloud-based in case you're off-site or have multiple sites. As I mentioned, we have our command center, that mobility. And then what's more important is none of these systems are the same. So why we try to modularize as much as possible, just like Microsoft Excel is a modular, you can always do special things in there. It appears almost anybody that has any kind of systems, they typically have some, we'll call sacred cows that they need to bring into the operation, something they do special for their clients, and we can always write in some custom software. Next. All right, so the biggest thing here, we'll start moving along, was the scope. All right, so here's some of the challenges. Not only doing one distribution center, they had to do 2 distribution centers, and we're going to do them the same year. So they're putting WMS in 2 distribution centers. And one of the tricks was they wanted the WMS in one distribution center was live. So WCS COS had to talk to that new one, but COS was going to be implemented, the WCS, into the second distribution center, talking to their old WMS first, and then transition live to the new. So we had to write 2 different program interfaces there and have the ability to have them run live and switch back and forth from one to the other. The first was completed in the first part of 24, and then the second part of 24. At the same time, you had to write the new interface and implement 2 brand new, upgrading all the pick-to-lights, all the network cabling, and all the interfaces for 2 brand new pick-to-light systems. One which needed to talk to their old WMS, one of the new WMS, and then transfer that over there. On top of that, while you're implementing this, you have to take responsibility and accountability for all the conveyor systems, all the PLCs, and all the sortation happening on the floor. That was next. All right. So with all of that scope of work happening in 8 short months, one of those keys, as I mentioned earlier, and you can see it, and we can forward this to whoever would like. You notice up at the top, we had to write 2 functionality. We have 2 functionality specs on the interface side. But as I mentioned, the first 5 minutes, to the operator using the system, it had to appear they didn't know who we were talking to on the backside. So we seamlessly had to integrate both of these systems to their old and the new Blue Yonder system. Next. All right. So how do you do that? This doesn't happen overnight, right? Successful projects it's all about communication. So once we defined what we had to do, what problems we had to solve, the teams took over. All the introductions were made, and then workshops are key. You have to have weekly meetings at the high level to overview all of your core processes, wave and batch releases, order confirmations, the countless core activities that are happening. Then there's a whole set of secondary rules that happen out there that we're aware of, that we walk the client through, and we ask them specifically, how would you like all these cases to be handled in the new situation and in the old situation? And then what is hot tracks are happening out there? What's specific? Remember I told you those special activities that need to happen beyond what we have in our standard module. Then once all that's determined, we build these dev environments, our development environments, to test both the interface between the WMS and the WCS, but also between the controls and what's being upgraded on the floor and down. So there's a whole series of workshops and engineering being done between the WMS, WCS, and the WCS and the control system on the floor. Next. And then you have to create 2 implementation plans, because one is located in Wisconsin and the other one is located in Ohio. And the first one we're integrating to a WMS that's already a new one that's established, the operator are using it. And the second one, a more complicated plan to implement with an existing WMS system, and then a plan to switch over and test and also assume all the conveyor controls only 8 short months after that. Next. All right. So what happens when we do all this in 8 months? COS did replace the outdated WCS in both distribution centers in those short 8 months over the summer. COS integrated with both the WMS, old and new, successfully. The operators couldn't see the difference on the plant floor. Systems in motion at the same time, installed 2 brand new, although they had existing pick-to-light. As I mentioned, we had to upgrade all the push buttons, all the network cables, all the power data centers, and all the interface back. So up through the COS system, and had to put all the new drivers in and then interface to the old WMS system and the new WMS system with all those key controls for the pick-to-light system. Next. All right. In doing so, also assume responsibility of 2 completely different conveyor systems. They were not any way, shape, or form. They had a different number of shipping sorters, different number of scanners, zone routing in there. So we had to take control of both of these. There were some outdated controls we had to address and put in a new skeleton structure to allow them now to grow their controls more into the future. Now that they have visibility through the WCS system, all of this was done in both distribution centers with 0 downtime and no production loss in either one of the distribution centers. And last but not least, systems also address school specialties. Now they have someone to call, buzz, phone, 24/7 support, anywhere from the WCS all the way through to something mechanical. Next. All right, that was the journey. We stayed at 100,000 foot. If there's any questions, any specifics, we can always circle back after this and answer those. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael on the lessons they learned.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Scott. So as we went through the WCS process, we kind of outlined down here what we really did and what we learned, obviously, from implementing this WCS. So as far as implementation goes, one of the smoothest, if not the smoothest, I've ever been a part of, which hasn't been very many yet, but hopefully will be in the future. So when you look at this, the biggest number one was we didn't disrupt the business. So a few reasons why we didn't disrupt the business. Obviously, a smooth implementation. We worked flexible with Scott's team and Michael's team to understand that we needed to do this on off hours or during the weekend. So we did a bunch of different acceptance testing. We did 2 mock go lives. So we did those over, of course, a few different weekends. Each time we did the same thing, but then we also made sure that every single scanner was tested with every different type of label we use, whether it's tote, box, every size of box. We used live orders to ensure that the testing we were doing, there wouldn't be an aha moment of, well, we just use test data versus live data. So we ensured that we tested as much as we could to go live because of the importance of not being able to disrupt our customers. Number 2 is visibility. So when you talk about why we kind of wanted to go from our old system, BoxWorks, to COS, is now we couldn't see where a box was on the line. We didn't know at what point in the box, or sorry, the order was through the system. And obviously at times you may have a customer cancellation, a quality issue with the product. So we need to be able to stop on a dime and be able to pivot when we needed to. Throughput through the system. So now we can finally measure how many pack lanes we need open because of the throughput that's going on. We can turn pack lanes on and off. We can understand the heartbeats of our scanners, which we learned through that now we probably have some more issues with some of our scanners and stuff because now we truly trust that the data we have there is right. And then the troubleshooting piece, like I said before, what we ended up doing as well, we knew that the WCS was giving us the right information. So we ended up upgrading our scanners, changing some photo eyes, and really getting a lot of information from Scott's team on what improvements we needed to make on top of just the WCS to ensure that our fulfillment center process and our conveyor lines are running seamlessly. And then as we're going into it now, learning that now some of our infrastructure, that we need to start looking for those opportunities for improvement. So once we've really had the solid base, now we can start brainstorming and reaching out and really just adding additional positive things to our conveyor system and our support system that, again, at the end of the day, no customer interruptions.
I could take it right there. We were at Michael's facility on Monday, and the first thing he showed us is his control tower. He had the WCS and COS up, and he knew how many people in each area, and everything was green, and he was just so excited about it. So I can vouch firsthand. Michael's happy with his new world.
Absolutely. Really great. Oh, sorry. So this is me as well. So with some WMS things, so obviously WCS was its own implementation. Then we moved as far as Mansfield goes later on. Actually in October, end of October, we ended up going live with a new WMS. So one of the biggest things is you guys potentially looking for a new WMS. I can't stress enough the importance of good data in gives good data out. As we did this implementation, we've learned that some of the shortcuts that maybe we took at some point because we had 28,000 items, 60-some thousand locations, every location, every metric, and that everything matters. So I can't stress enough the importance of making sure item masters, location masters are seamless and flawless. We put a decent amount of work into it, but again, if I could do it all over again, we certainly do much more and audit as much as we could for that. And then real time versus batch. So with the old system, we could kind of do whatever we wanted to. We didn't really create any kind of issues. We didn't have to worry about what inventory was at. The system kind of let us do whatever we wanted, which obviously at some point in time got us into some location accuracy issues or some item master issues. So with Blue Yonder, the good thing is it keeps you on your toes. It makes you respond now. You have to fix things now. You have to ensure that everything is accurate because it doesn't let you go to the next step. But at the end of the day, what it does provide is ensuring that the customer gets exactly what they want, the quantities they want, and they're on time. And then, like I said, WMS integration with WCS, extremely valuable tool. They talk to each other. So now we can see the heartbeat of, okay, is this a Blue Yonder issue WMS or is this a WCS issue? So we have two different hotlines we can contact 24 hours a day and understand within by the first half hour, if not sooner, we have a response and they know the ins and outs of our system now, so they can help troubleshoot. So we really reduce the downtime of this. Before that, we could be down for a day or two before we figured out the root cause of it. And then obviously the last part, which we actually just launched a few weeks ago, is LMS, the labor management system. I mean, we went when we went live with Blue Yonder, we went about 3 months without understanding any type of labor metrics, which obviously is, as you're trying to run an operation, is very difficult. So now we have that data points. We can have those conversations with our employees. We can better staff to our headcount and ensure that we stay under budget with what we need to do. And also with that, we're working on implementing a rewards program for our employees. So now that they can see that their efficiency ratings are where they're at, they meet their goals, and we're going to financially reward them for that as well.
Awesome. Hey, just a real quick thing. If you guys have questions, please use the Q&A. We want to make this as interaction as possible. So I think the last two things here is, where are we going? So good news, we took the order profile from years past, Greg. You go to the next slide. And what we identified is that some of the forward pick locations and the reserve locations need to change. So congratulations to the school specialty sales team. They've been able to actually add additional items per order and quantity per order. So in an effort to actually make these changes, we got to make some investments in the infrastructure. So if you get the next slide, I think, slotting optimization was a big portion of this. And we did, 8 different types of slotting analysis, heavy to light, different zones, order induction. What's the best way to do it? While we have Greenville on this slide, we also did this with Michael and his team in Mansfield. So it was a great, quick win. And anybody that's going to do a brand new WCS or WES install, great time to, slot is before you go live, especially with the WMS install. Now, if you go to the next slide, the facility design and layout. So we definitely need to make some investments, and we got to think with the end in mind. So Scott, I'll let you walk us through kind of, the approach and how we think with the end in mind, so we don't have any throwaway.
All right, thanks, Michael. And we're going to get through this rather quick because I want to make sure we have some time for folks to ask some questions too. When we develop a system in a brownfield, it's much more difficult than a greenfield. As I mentioned, just like the WCS, we have to keep them running the entire time. So we have to figure out the key elements to a system and how to take them from where they are today and put together a storybook, is what we named it, on how to get them to eventually where they want to be in sequential bites. So if we go to the next slide, is this the next one?
You took out the
okay, got it. Just make sure. Yeah, mine was a little slow. Okay, perfect. So how do we do this? So real quick, we've got a WCS backbone, right? We got the new WMS. We've got a solid structure for data at the top. Now we've got a new WCS in. Now we know we can count on all the data flow. Now that we've got the solid backbone and we upgraded some of the controls, what we can start doing is implementing better and proper storage solutions, pick solutions, and conveyance solutions. So real quick, how do we take this journey? We take down some select rack next. And we, in this particular area, we cube out their building by putting in two levels, pallet flow and case flow pick modules based on Alpine's storage type analysis. And they let us know what type of storage mediums. We build these new storage mediums next. And then after that, we designed a conveyor system that has zone routing in it and X amount of number of order starts based on where orders need to start, how many are completed, and design the number of we'll call pick zones in each level and exits and bypasses when orders are complete. We then tie that in to their old existing bin system. And what we also do then is allow them to have an early out. And let me take a step back. When we time their bin system, we're staying with their existing pack system. When we make the next move, when they're comfortable after doing pick to box out of the new pick module, we put a mezzanine deck in and we put in a print and apply system. Overall, that allows them to pick the box, eliminate all their totes, and then eventually upgrade their entire shipping system shown there in purple. So we've gone from an antiquated old pick to tote to have to repack all the floor, not utilizing its cube, to a fully automated zone routing, multi-level pallet cash flow pick module that feeds to C&D items in the bin and recombines those back to a full print and apply and then sortation shipping system. And there we go. There's just some examples of some of the activities and then the different facilities. So I think we can just cut it right there. I know we're working up to the end of the hour there, but I don't know how much more you want to share there, Michael. But
no, I think the key is, like, we learned about school specialty, where they were, where they are, where they're going. We definitely know the problem that we were attempting to solve, the approach we took, right? Strategic master plan over a 5-year planning horizon. Where should the DCs be, or optimally, if we keep them where they're at, what's the penalty? Did the WMS selection implementation, WCS installation, and we've also looked at what's changed in the business to identify we are lacking some forward pick locations and some reserve high density storage. And then we've done some slotting to get some value. And now we're at a point where we've made the right investment in the software, both the WCS and the WMS. Now we can actually make some changes to the facility. So with that being said, want to see if there's any questions. Looks like we got one online there. That was pretty easy. What does WCS stand for? Warehouse Control System. I guess for us that do it every day, sometimes that happens.
Yeah, and I'll jump in there real quick. So when we talk about controls, we talk about, you can think about a push button on the floor, or a print and apply, or some activity that's happening. And all that world is called electrical controls. So we just call it, in the material handling world, controls. So what has to happen is there's data floating around at the warehouse management level, the business level. Right, you got accounting and receiving and scanning, all that stuff's happening. But eventually something has to talk to those machines on the floor, which are hardwired. So as you know, in the world of zeros and ones, bits and bytes, something has to work to be the go-between between those bits and bytes to the actual switches that are happening on the floor. And a warehouse control system does that. You're like, well, Scott, the next question number 2, well, then what's a WES system? The warehouse control system is simply, in the simplest form, that black box that just acting as a go-between between the data and all the stuff that's happening on the floor. An execution system starts adding value, providing screens, interfaces, such as allowing Michael to turn on and off a certain number of pack lanes based on activity. It lets him know when the last time a package was seen at a certain scanner. It also allows him, if you have the cubing module, to dump all of your data and all your orders for one day, use your cube analysis and tell you to start one large box on the first level and 2 mediums on the second. And then when it gets over to the print and apply, it can rate shop them. It can apply a print and label. So there's all these activities that can happen at the execution level, where it used to happen with all these other different areas. So warehouse control systems have grown into warehouse execution systems. So you'll hear those two used, intertwined.
Okay, cool. I've got a few more questions. This first one's for Michael Harris. Michael, the question is, how did you prepare the floor associates for these implementations, specifically around WMS, to ensure success during the rollout and go live?
Yeah. So when we looked at that, really, as you guys know as well as leaders, that we had to ensure that we got the buy-in. If you don't get the buy-in at the floor level, the success of any implementation or even sustainability, it's not going to be there. So the biggest thing that we did, and I would highly recommend that anyone really does this, is created what was called a Tiger team. So we identified some of our top performers or subject matter experts or people that have been here just for a while that want to grow, and put them on the team where they got to be a part of a lot of the testing, a lot of the build out, and really just helped build or develop the system. So we got their feedback because they do it every day. We didn't want to launch something that it's everyone from the higher up saying, hey, this is how you're going to pick a box now. It doesn't matter how we did it before, just do it this way. So we got a lot of feedback that way. These people now are growing into further roles to us and trying to get into leadership roles. So really, I really valued, and I would say for you guys as well, is use your floor associates as just as much as you do with the other leaders in your groups to help develop and roll out the systems.
Great. Thank you very much. And then there's one for Mr. Lee and then one more to end up with Mr. Harris. Scott, what did what are the signs to identify when it's time to replace your current WCS?
Oh, okay. And that I'm not going to go ask and try to find that one slide, but aggravation and boiling points. What happens in most WCSs is your processes, and I'm going to call your business processes, your receiving processes, the demands by your customer. Maybe you launched an e-commerce site, and all those activities do not have the ability to touch or get information from your floor. So when you release an order out to the floor, you have no idea where it is until it shows up on your shipping dock. When you start wanting to have that information as a business director, supply chain person, you want that, it's time to upgrade your warehouse control system. On the inverse side, if you're on the floor and you're running a conveyor system or a simple print apply or a goods to person system, and all of a sudden you have no data being fed to you, or you don't know where that box is, and you know you saw your box, you know you started picking that order, and now it's the end of the day and you can't find the darn thing, and then you have no idea how to look that up, that's a problem. There's also a secondary indicator at the machine floor level, and that's when your equipment starts to age and you go to service it and you cannot get any upgrades. When you go to newer technology, it allows you to go on higher speed networks. It allows for different types of architecture, and typically an old WCS system will not allow you to interface with your WMS, leveraging those new technologies available in the PLC world, the HMI, the goods to persons. You're going to need to upgrade and allow a lot faster, newer infrastructure in that middle software.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that actually covered what the last question for Michael Harris was. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining. I want to be respectful of your time. We're about 5 minutes till the top of the hour. I'm happy to invite you to please join us for our April webinar. Put it on your calendars. It's on 4/23/25. We'll be sending out invitations via links for the time. But the topic is navigating the WMS journey, selection, implementation, and post-go live success. So in that webinar, you're going to learn how to successfully implement a new WMS and keep it running with no disruption to your clients. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody who attended. If you have any questions, here are some contact informations on the slide. We will be at ProMat in Chicago on March 17 through 25. And our booth number is S as in Sam 4474. Would love for you guys to stop by and talk to us about any of your supply chain needs. With that, I'm going to say adios and goodbye and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Greg.
Yep. Thank you, Greg.